It is the final word, T20 World Cup Daily. It's day 22. We're in the thick of the Super 8s. Geoff Lemon and Adam Collins. The show's brought to you by Westfield London and Westfield Stratford City. Not just one, but both. It was India versus Bangladesh today. Adam, would you please tell me about the game in 30 seconds?
Okay, India was sent in, which Rohit said he was cool with. They all made contributions through the early and middle part of the innings, but no one really cracked on until Hardik Pandya, who finished with an even 50 not out from 27 balls, hoisting India to 196 for 5 by the time they were compulsorily closed to end their innings. Bangladesh never looked like it, 40 from Shanto. They could have ran the game on simulation. Bumrah, perfect. Arshdeep, pretty good as well, despite conceding a couple of sixes in his final over. And India win by 50 runs. They're playing the semi-final in Guyana. We knew that already. Australia can join them in the semi-finals tonight.
There we go. It did feel like a simulation. It felt like such a dispiriting, in a way, performance because it was so predictable. Because after what we saw from Bangladesh against Australia, I didn't expect anything else from them. There were a couple of moments. There are always these couple of bright spots in terms of the bowlers where Rishad Hussain is exciting and where Tanzim Shakib has been brilliant. At times, he's had a great tournament. He comes on and takes 2 wickets in an over. At one stage, gets rid of Surya Kumar Yadav's second ball for 6 as well, which is a great scorecard curiosity.
6 and out.
Yeah, 6 and out, exactly. After he'd already come in and knocked over Kohli. That's a pretty good double to have in an over. Kohli plus SKY with 6 in between them. Fine, you'd take that in 3 balls. But the batting just went nowhere. It almost looked like they weren't even bothered with trying to chase it down, except for Shanto, who was pretty good off the top and gave it a go, gave it a bit of a rattle. But by the time he's out for 40 off 32, nobody else really, except for Rishad Hussain, the leg spinner who comes in down the order and bashes a few sixes. It just didn't look like they were even going to try to chase the target. I feel really flat about Bangladesh at the moment because they're a team that we've wanted to do well, and we have had some emotional investment in them, I guess, and at the moment it just feels like they're not good enough to play at this level. They don't deserve to be in the Super 8s with the way that they're playing at the moment. And how can one of the top 10 teams in the world supposedly be so far off the pace?
Yeah, look, I have a slightly different view. I think they did have a crack at the chase. It's just that they were swamped by an outstanding bowling attack. So, Lytton Das, when he's dismissed, caught it deep mid-wicket, it's trying to make something that's not quite there. Good bowling from Hardik, setting the tempter outside the line of the off stump with a slower ball. But, with Tanzid getting a beauty from Kuldeep Yadav, which I know he reviews, and that's comical and all the rest of it, but that's just Kuldeep being too good. Likewise, when Shanto eventually falls to Bumrah, what was interesting about India's innings was that there are a number of overs that were between 3 and 5 runs. They had big overs. It was feast and famine throughout the course of their 20 overs in the middle. They never had a 27 off an over or anything ridiculous, but there are a lot of overs worth about 12 to 15 and a lot of overs that were worth sort of 3 to 5. And a number of times they had instances of hitting 10 or 12 in an over and losing a wicket in the next over. There was the curiosity that they kept getting these stats, and the moment that Rohit was flying 23 from 11 out to Shakib in his second over. Shakib's was a milestone wicket for him, I'm pretty sure. I'm not sure which one exactly, but Shakib ticked one box tonight across his long and storied career. Kohli, the over after hitting a couple of big sixes, he was really fired up today, having only made 29 runs to this point in the tournament. 37 from 28, then loses his middle stump when misreading Tamsin off the pitch. He was kind of in no man's land in terms of coming forward, and he was unable to get down in time. SKY 6 and out, you've already mentioned. Good piece of bowling, Tanzim getting that to rise off the deck the other way. But then Rishad, likewise, similar to Kohli, just when he was really firing up, he was out to Rishad Hussain, the 21-year-old leg spinner who's been so impressive through the tournament with 11 wickets, and that was the end of him. And even Shivam Dubey. Something I have trouble with this guy's name. Shivam Dubey. Don't know why. I can say it 100 times and get it wrong. Shivam Dubey. There we go. Just when he hit 3 sixes in quick succession, he was also out to the leg spin of Rishad Hussain. So there was this clump of players who got starts. It was really only Hardik Pandya in the final over where 3 boundaries came down to deep third, one from a thick edge, one from a full toss off the outside edge, which he kind of placed there, and a lovely steer to move to 50 that got them up to 196. So we're never going to chase it down, Bangladesh, because they don't have the weapons, but I think they tried, I guess is my point. It didn't feel like they were conceding defeat quite so much as Bumrah was just unplayable again today. The support of Arshdeep, who picked up 2 wickets late, but bowled better than that early on. Then you saw, I mentioned Hardik already getting a wicket in his first over. Kuldeep, you had to have 3 for 19 from 4. He wasn't even in their starting 11, Geoff. You go back to those American games, and they weren't picking Kuldeep. Now you can't imagine them leaving him out. And then Jadeja didn't have his best day, a few drag downs, but still only went at 8s when Bangladesh needed to go at 10s.
So a couple of interesting things there. Rowett and Kohli, their best opening partnership of the tournament, they put on 39, and it only lasted 3.5 overs. So there was something. Harsha asked Rowett about that after the game, about whether 23 off 11, is that a satisfying innings? Basically, is that a score you're happy to make because of the way that India want to play, because they want to go hard as early as possible at the bowling, and if you can have a few players with small scores with high strike rates, that's better for you. And Rowett basically said, he said at the moment I'm not interested in 50s or 100s. I'm interested in how fast people are scoring. Was the subtext of what he was saying, which is interesting. Like it's a more ruthless and less sort of personal milestone oriented approach, I suppose. And we saw that from India today with he makes 23, Kohli 37, Rishabh 36, Dubey 34, Hardik 50, and he's not hunting the 50. He just happens to get there at the end because he's like you say, he's able to use the pace behind point really well. It felt like an important innings for Dubey as well, who started a bit more slowly and was prodding around a bit, but eventually connects with those 3 big sixes. So interesting approach. I think if India take that charge the enemy lines kind of approach through the rest of the tournament, that makes them a much more dangerous team.
Just want to do Bangladesh and cover them off first and come back to the bigger picture with India. Like, this should be the tournament that ends the generation for Bangladesh. Like, it kind of puts a full stop on where they've been. They've reached this stage of the T20 World Cup for the first time. We've seen them come ever so close to kind of penetrating the mainframe in a couple of 50-over World Cups, but not quite. Thinking about 2019 when they finished, I think, in 5th spot or 6th spot.
2015 they made the quarters.
2015 when they made the quarterfinals.
Setup.
Yeah, where they beat England in the last group game, or the penultimate group game, and got through to the final 8. But, Shakib's 37 and Mahmudullah's 36, who made his debut like the better part of 16, 17 years ago. It just feels like this side now, they've got some younger players coming through. The obvious one is Rishad Hossain, right? Hits 3 sixes as soon as he walked out with the bat. Picked up a couple of expensive wickets today, but has been competitive the whole way through. At 21, they want to be remodelling this side more in his image, I think, to be a more modern side who can bat at a higher tempo and can be more aggressive with the ball. I'm not quite sure where Shakib fits anymore. I know that he's been an all-time great for Bangladesh. It's been a long, long day. I was up at 6 o'clock editing another podcast. When Shakib finishes his career, he'll be rightly recognised as Bangladesh's greatest player ever. I think that's without much dispute.
There's no dispute there. Yeah.
But when you're thinking about the next 50-over World Cup, they're no sure thing of making it, Bangladesh. They're no sure thing of making it. You look at the way that the qualification process works for 2.5 years from now. They've got work to do. This is, I think, the right time to start considering where they want to be in 5 or 10 years' time and putting the investment in, because their bowling has, for the most part, held up here. I mentioned earlier Rashid Hussain. We've seen the emergence of Tanzim Hassan Saqib, who picked up a couple today, but over 10 wickets in the tournament as well. There have been green shoots. And with the bat, I mean, I know that we've been banging on about these guys for a couple of years now, but Lytton Das, who always does a job when opening the batting, for the most part anyway. Tanzim Hassan made 29 today, didn't quite get there, but it felt like for a time he had the kind of stroke play through the offside that could threaten Bumrah and Arshdeep. Shanto, the captain, 40 from 32. Hudroy, who, again, he at times has been a match winner for Bangladesh across the 3 formats in the last couple of years. There is something there. There's a nucleus of something, but I feel like it's one of those situations where they're going to have to move on from a couple of the senior players to give space to some younger players to come through. The fact that Tuscan Ahmed wasn't picked today, I was bewildered by that. I understand why on a spinning track they wanted to have the extra spin option. Mahedi Hassan, his first 3 overs went for 15, bowled overs 1, 3, and 7. Got clouded in his final over. I suppose it kind of worked on that basis, but it felt like a defensive move. Tashkent Ahmed is the kind of guy who can run through a high-quality international top order, and they deprived themselves of that opportunity today. So a bit of muddled thinking, not quite there with their team balance. And, I think it's the right time to draw a line under a couple of these guys for no other reason than they need to find space for the next generation to come through.
Yeah, maybe it's the don't tell mum the babysitter's dead sort of scenario. You need to get the parents out of the situation so that the next generation can express themselves and fully flourish. Because, and we know they're very respectful and deferential to those older players, and you hear it in the way they speak about them in press conferences and so on. The younger players, there's always this degree of deference. But they've had the experience now. Those players like Shanto's skippering the side now, right? Kridoy is the most exciting player for Bangladesh for mine. I just love watching him play, and I like his attitude. Obviously, Lytton Dus is now very experienced and not really a young emerging player anymore. But if you those players have had some years playing with Shakib and Mahmudullah, and they've been able to learn from that and sort of get the benefit of having those senior players. But maybe, like you say, maybe if those players move on at this point, it gives room for this team to turn into something else, and they need to, because they can't pot around for 10 more years and be in the same spot as they are. Like, Bangladesh have basically leveled up once, and that's in the last sort of 8 to 9 years, I guess. They became a more competitive side. They started winning some test matches at home. They had a few results away, not often, but they were able to beat some sides away. They've had a better white ball record. They became quite a good white ball team at home for a few years there, which seems to have slipped backwards actually in the last little bit. But they've leveled up once, but they need to do it again. I don't understand Pokemon, but they have to become the better Bangladesh Pokemon. They have to become Bangla Lizuru or some shit.
Yeah, and look, some of it is structural and issues that we've talked about on the podcast for years and years, but some of it's internal. So that'll be the conversations they have and the review they do. Other side of the ledger, we knew that India were going to be playing their semi-final at Guyana. It was just a matter of who they were going to play against in the other group, and that's far from clear. The other group's far more competitive in the Super 8s, but by that, I mean there are genuinely 3 teams trying to get into 2 spots, whereas here, because Australia and India were scheduled to play Bangladesh and Afghanistan in the first 2 games, it does present the rather curious scenario where the next game that they play is kind of a weird dead rubber, but also the precursor to potentially the final. Yeah. So it's a weird one in how they psychologically will come at that. Yes, you could end up top of the group, and that'll inform who you play in second spot from the other side of the draw. If you finish top, there's that incentive. I'm not sure if that will mean an awful lot, with net run rate in all probability ending up the tiebreaker on the other side. But still, that's worth noting. But zooming out from all of that, I just can't see India being beaten out. Today was the day they needed to have. They needed to have the day where a number of them looked really good. And they did. They hit a lot of sixes today. They were able to bat in a higher gear. They were able to bat first, which Rohit said at the toss he wanted to do, and set a score. They weren't chasing, which I think was helpful in doing that. And on the bowling side of the ledger, they are so bloody difficult to get away. They're such a beautifully balanced attack. All 6 bowlers are frontliners. They're not relying on, like Bangladesh had Mahmudullah bowl a couple of overs to building some flexibility. They don't need to bother with that with India. They have got 3 frontline seamers, including Hardik in that equation, and 3 genuine spinners, with someone like Akshar Patel, who can come in and bat at number 4 in a game against Pakistan and then bowl inside the power play, but only really needed for 2 overs because you've got Jadeja to always bowl over number 7, and Kuldeep, who's their most threatening weapon when out of the slow options. And then you just got Bumrah, who is going at an economy rate in this tournament of 3.6. As Daniel said on the show a couple of days ago, you're effectively conceding 2 to 3 overs in every game against India, because you just know, you'll get, like it was today, 13 runs off him. Like, you might get 13 off 2 overs from a normal bowler. Right. He's eliminating 2 overs from any team in every game.
Yeah, I mean, you'd often get 13 off 1 over from someone who's not quite up to par. I mean, Akshar got clobbered today because Rishad came in at the end and whacked him for a couple of sixes. But 2 for 13 today, Bumrah's tournament. And before that, he takes, 2 for 6, 3 for 14, none for 25 against the US, which was his worst day out, and 3 for 7. I mean, it is absolutely bananas that a bowler can do this. And it's not just the wicket taking, it's the economy. So he's taken 10 wickets. He's taking a wicket in the tournament every 11 balls. And he's going at 3 and over in T20 international cricket. Like, it is absolutely insane, even taking into account the weird tracks that they played on in New York.
Yeah, all of that. I share all those views, and I just feel like because of Bumrah, and because now Kohli's kind of in the tournament, Rohit's in the tournament, Rishabh Pant's in the tournament, Hardik's making runs again.
Oh, I
Rishabh,
mean,
well, he looked turgid for 5 minutes and
yeah,
looked great for 20 minutes, right?
then he
So,
did.
and I
But
think that's
it's
a
like
sign.
just seeing him back, and I don't think I've done a show where we've talked about him yet. I know you've talked about him with Daniel, but it's just so heartening to see him back and playing the same way. I just genuinely didn't think it was going to happen. I thought
Yeah.
the level of the injuries that he had, I thought he might come back as a cricketer, but he's probably not going to be quite the same. To come back and play with the freedom that he has, the aggression that he has, and to be able to still pull off those shots that he plays and to do it with the same sort of smile on his face and to hit a one-handed six down the ground like he used to do, it just, it makes my heart sing a little bit. It makes me believe that good things are possible in this world.
What I liked was the fact that he started slowly and didn't throw it away. He actually gave himself a chance. And sometimes in T20 cricket, you hear the real frontliners talk about this, about rhythm, about having rhythm in short form cricket. And if you're not hitting the ball out of the park first ball, you've got to give yourself a little bit of a window. And he did that today, and that paid off. And he hit the ball. And he had one of those classic Rishabh Pant one-handed sixes down the ground as well, which he's kind of made a trademark of. Certainly before his car accident, he was doing that in seemingly every other white ball game that he was playing in. So India, to me, look unstoppable. But I'm really interested in the match play and the psychology around that Australia game in a couple of days. Geoff, I think we've covered all bases and it's time to move to the final word, Hall of Fame, which is always brought to you by Westfield London and Westfield Stratford City. It's day 22 on the Final Word Daily, where India have beaten Bangladesh comprehensively. Our Hall of Fame is brought to you by Westfield London, Westfield Stratford City. Geoff, tell us a story about them on this lovely Saturday evening, where I am at least.
It is a nice summery time in London at the moment. And in that weather, as the old saying goes, I scream, you scream, we all scream for gelato. Why not? Why not move on to a dairy-free alternative? As the weather finally starts to warm up, there's no doubt you too will be screaming for gelato like Stanley Kowalski screaming for or at his wife. That's a Streetcar Named Desire reference. If people want to look that up, that's Marlon Brando. A much better way of obtaining gelato than screaming for it is to ask the good folk at Bardiani for some of their best, made under the watchful eye of Paolo Pomposi, who is a gelato geppetto, if you will, as in he brings it to life. Bardiani's signature Buon Talenti and Buon Talenti pistachio, which, as far as my Italian goes, means good, talented pistachio, which I suppose it is. It's a talented nut, one of the talents of the nut world. As my friend Hugo said, I like a pistachio because it gives me a little task before I eat something. That gelato will have you weeping on your knees in public, for you have tasted heaven itself. You can find Bardiani gelaterias in a number of locations, but we would like you to go to the one at Westfield London.
Yes.
Westfield London. Buy cones, don't punch cones.
Well, yeah, just on the central thesis of this is the time to be eating gelato in England. I played cricket yesterday. It was a stunning day. It was solstice. So it was, as you know, this time of year, Geoff, there's pretty much nowhere better to be than the UK, because we're that far north that you get nice lights till, I guess it's nearly 10 o'clock. So to be savoured, to be embraced, and why wouldn't you want to do it with some gelato as well? Geoff, a Hall of Fame nomination from you. Why don't you go first?
I've got a couple. My first one, though, would be a dual nomination for the two DRS reviews used by Bangladesh against Kuldeep Yadav's LBWs, both of which were as fucking plum as you can get, as Matt Roller sent me a clip during the week of every time that Geoff Douche on commentary said, a man fixing a pipe couldn't be plumber than that, which is a line that he liked to use very often, and wheeled it out as often as he could. And today, I mean, the first one, Jesus Christ, back leg on the knee in front of middle. Oh, yeah, let's have a look at that one. What do you mean? Let's have a look at it. You could feel it. It's hit you on the knee. It's your knee. You know where that knee is. You know that it's the one closest to the stumps. And you know that you're standing in front of middle. What are you doing? And then the next one was pretty much the same. It hit a bit further in front of the stumps, but it was dead straight, low, cannoning, going straight on to hit middle. Burn 2 reviews. That was right up there with some of the worst reviewing I've ever seen.
Yeah, the only thing going for the review on the first one was that it spun so much. I mean, that googly that he's bowling at the moment, no one can pick it. But as soon as it hits the pitch, every batter is in trouble.
Yeah,
mine is for Jasprit Bumrah, who had 9 runs conceded till his final ball. He was on the cusp of another 2 for not yet 10. And the final ball was an edge that ran away for 4, and he didn't show it. There was no emotion from Boomer about conceding 13 instead of 9, but I felt it because I was aware of his analysis coming into this game, and having gone for less than 10 a couple of times, it would have been special. Doesn't matter. He's going beautifully. I think that is the Hall of Fame. Geoff,
last nom is for the St. Lucia street party that happened last night. Everybody, it seems, on this tour headed down there to participate in what is, a few blocks of the town in Grossier get sort of cordoned off and then just filled with people. We got there about 8 o'clock and we left it much later than that, but gradually over those few hours, it just, every time it seemed like you couldn't fit more people in there, more people arrived and somehow fitted in there. So street stalls, music, dancing, the works, in this hot, sweaty middle of the night. Magical. Like, it's so good to be out here in the middle of this.
That's what it's all about. It is the World Cup, the T20 World Cup. It'll continue for another week. The watch along is this time next Saturday. So if you're based in the UK, specifically London, and you want to join us at Westfield London at 6s, we're going to be watching that together, or at least I'll be there before recording the podcast. And that's a nice place to leave it. We've got a second show later today that'll cover off the Australia-Afghanistan game. So Australia can do just what India have done today and lock up their place in the semi-finals. I'm Adam Collins. He's Geoff Lemon. That's it for us. We're here for Westfield London, Westfield Stratford City. More extra, less ordinary. Catch you later.
See ya.